What's up? John Hansen here with a very brief waiver wire report. We've got the massive waiver wire article up at fantasypoints.com. Myself and the grinder, Tom Brawley, doing most of the heavy lifting. I do believe it's probably the most well researched and in depth waiver wire report out there. We do go pretty darn deep, a lot of detail, but every week I take the all the options there on the waiver wire and I narrow it down to my top 15. And it's certainly difficult to do this because you know your pickups so often on the waiver wire are depending upon your needs and your expectations. As I'm trying to record this video, by the way, once again too late on a Monday watching the Rams Bengals game, but that's neither here nor there. When you're working the waiver wire, your expectations come into play. Sometimes you're looking to stash away a player for the long term, or sometimes you need help right now. For example, in LA with the Chargers, with Mike Williams going down, I would view Quentin Johnston more as a long term upside stash and Josh Palmer as a better immediate impact dude here. Obviously, Josh Palmer, it's a new offense for everyone, but Josh Palmer's been in the NFL a couple of years now and certainly knows Justin Herbert, certainly had a big game in week number 3. So I do narrow it down to my top 15 on the waiver wire report at fantasypoints.com, but I'm going to pull out 5 dudes here for this little video who do intrigue me. Again, if you want to check out the entire report at fantasypoints.com and you're not a subscriber, you can use the promo code Gurific25 and save yourself 25% on your subscriptions. All right, let's get into it here. A lot of wide receivers. Certainly, we're not going to talk Devon A-Chain because, well, even though he's certainly available in more than 50% of Yahoo leagues, obviously that ship has sailed. It's pretty darn obvious. He was in my top 15 last week, and our guy Adam Kaplan did give us a nice tip off on Devon A-Chain on our Thursday night live stream. Yet another benefit of subscribing to fantasypoints.com. I'm going to go down the board just a little bit. I'm not even going to bother with my guy Tank Dell, who is still available somehow in 70% of Yahoo leagues right now. So that is a pretty obvious pickup. He was my number one wide receiver pickup last week at fantasypoints.com, and he's been one of my favorites all along. I interviewed that dude at the combine, been talking about him ever since. I love that kid, Tank Dell. Does not go by Nathaniel, by the way. Let's get into the 5 dudes that I'm going to take a look at here for the waiver wire report here heading into week number 4. Number 1 is Marv Mims, Denver's second round pick out of Oklahoma, a favorite of our guy Scott Barrett and Brett Whitefield. I actually went back and looked. Brett and I ranked him the highest among all the staff, believe it or not. That even that surprised me, but sometimes I go to the combine or the Senior Bowl and, I'll watch a player. I'm like, oh, yeah, this dude looks pretty good. But then you just kind of get a feel for the room, if you will. You talk to a number of people. And as I did that at the combine, especially, like, it was just pretty clear that people in the know were like all about Marvin Mims. Sean Payton certainly unleashed him in week number 2, a 60-yard touchdown and a 53-yard gainer on only 2 targets in week number 2. And all he did to follow that up was turn 5 targets into 3 catches for 73 yards, 13% target share. They are throwing it a lot in Denver these days. The defense is obviously pretty damn bad. They just suffered a 50-point loss at the hands of the Miami Dolphins. Oh, he added in a 99-yard kick return touchdown for 16 plus fantasy points. And his role is only growing because it's still been pretty darn minimal here. But among all wide receivers with at least 25 routes run per fantasy points data, Mr. Marvin Mims is number 1 in both fantasy points per route run at 1.25 and yards per route run and at 7.2, which is a pretty absurd number. Tyreek Hill, by the way, is second in both of those metrics. So once again, I would say confidently that Marvin Mims's role is only growing. Again, the defense is really bad. Russ Wilson's out there running around. They're going to be throwing it probably 38, 42 times per game. So pretty darn good situation there for Marvin Mims. Next up, I'll go to a couple of my favorite guys here from the Green Bay Packers. Romeo Doubs, only owned in 41% of Yahoo leagues, and Jaden Reed, who was actually only owned in 10% of Yahoo leagues. It is a little bit of a challenge because these guys all can't go off. And I've actually been saying since the summer, believe it or not, that I liked all Packers, all of them at their ADP. And by the way, I was wrong about AJ Dillon. Do not start AJ Dillon in the month of September ever. Maybe he can heat up when it gets like 4 out there, because that's pretty much what AJ Dillon needs, but that's neither here nor there. Romeo Doubs, two of my favorites. Like I said, I was all about Romeo Doubs as a deep sleeper May of 2022. Saw him at the Senior Bowl. We saw a little comp there to Devontae Adams. Rest is kind of history. He didn't go off or anything like that. But man, the connection with Jordan Love, as I've been saying for weeks now, is real. And he got over that hamstring injury. He grabbed his 3rd touchdown already of the season, 5 grabs for 73 with that touch. Team best 12 targets, 27% target share in that comeback victory against the Saints in week number 3. Now, of course, Christian Watson will return, but he's not necessarily a high volume guy. It's what I said all summer, and I really liked it. Like, Doubs is your prototypical possession guy, although they do take deep shots to him. Watson's your big outside athletic X receiver. I asked him at the combine about like running the ball like Debo, and he was all about it, by the way, and he actually did that last year. But Jaden Reed is another guy that probably one of my 5 or 6 favorite guys in this class. Watched him at the Senior Bowl. Quick twitch guy, lined up outside mostly at Michigan State, but at the Senior Bowl, they put him inside. He did well, showed well in the preseason. The guy's been balling out there. I mean, he might actually, as our guy Brett Whitefield speculated all summer, he might actually be the best volume guy here for Jordan Love, another guy we were all high on. I was high on, at least, and things are looking really good. So I know these guys all can't go off, but man, these are a couple of good football players in a pretty good spot in a still ascending offense. Let's move on. I'm belaboring that point. I'll belabor the next one as well. I'm still pretty intrigued and in on Kendrick Bourne, or as I call him, Kendrick Bourne to be alive. If you're of a certain age, that's potentially funny to you. But 33% owned on Yahoo. He's in Yahoo. He's had a strong connection with Mac Jones dating back to 2021. I kind of forgave him for 2022. He had a rough year. I think there was some sort of personal issue, or maybe he just thought that Matt Patricia and Joe Judge sucked. But he's had a great offseason. He's shown really, really well. He does have 4 catches in each of their first 3 games. I know the Patriots are a little annoying in that they have like a new favorite receiver every single week, but I don't know if they have much of a choice but to continue to put Kendrick Bourne in a really good fantasy spot. Per fantasy points data, among all wide receivers with at least 20 routes run, there are over 100 of them. He was tied for 15th in first read target share. So Mac Jones is looking for his boy. Tied for 23rd in expected fantasy points. He's 33rd in fantasy points per route run. So that's still real good. He's rolling right now with a 20% target share. And actually, this was maybe the most interesting because he's had a couple of downfield targets where, there were a couple where he had a chance to catch the ball, but most of them were almost throwaways. 71st only in catchable target percentage among this little sample size here. So things could get better for Kendrick Bourne. The matchups will be better. Not going to face the Jets every single week. So really like him. And then last but not least, I'm going to go Kenny Pickett. I know for those who follow, I was a big Kenny Pickett guy. We are hardly out of the woods, but we did settle down a bit in week number 3. Kenny Pickett looked a lot more like the rookie that showed a lot of poise in those tight games. Maybe he'll be more of a schoolyard guy and We'll just have to accept that at some point. But things are trending in the right direction after a pretty good performance. Did throw a couple of balls that could have been picks, maybe even one a pick six, but 16 for 28 for 235 with 2 touchdowns. Add a little bit with the legs, 11 yards rushing. And hey, look, he's not playing all that well. I'm a little underwhelmed still, but we do have the ability, the capability to scratch and claw to respectability. The offensive line, they're all bad in the league, most of them. Pittsburgh seems to always need a little bit of time to gel. So maybe we're starting to see that already. Najee got the ball, looked a little bit better. The running game needs help. They need to block it up a little bit better. And if they do, and they can protect a little bit better, one of the reasons I was so high on Kenny Pickett was the upside because of all these weapons. Deontay Johnson should be back in a couple of weeks. George Pickens, I think, is hanging in there. I thought last week he was a decent guy to trade, but played well in week 3. I haven't seen the entirety of the game, but how about my guy Calvin Austin, who I've been talking up after watching him practice in Mobile a year or two back in 2022. Been talking about this kid being a ridiculous separator, a separatist, if you will. And I mean, he's already got 2 60-plus yard touchdowns in his first pro season here. Last year was a complete lost year. Great kid, really smart kid. So he's got a lot to work with, plus the great Pat Freiermuth. So when you really look at it, there's still a very good chance that Kenny Pickett finishes exactly where I had him, which is like QB 19 or whatever it is. And it might not be pretty, but boy, when you really look at the field there from, the available quarterbacks likely in your waiver wire, I think Kenny Pickett can stand out a little bit. You can stand out a lot if you subscribe to fantasypoints.com and use that promo code and save 25%, Gurific25. So I'll wrap the video here. Check out the whole article on the website, fantasypoints.com.